Mr. Speaker, would you please have the clerk report Senate Committee Substitute 1?
Mr. Clerk, please report.
Senate Committee Substitute 1 to House Bill 3.
Lady from Meade.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, may I address the body to communicate the changes to Senate Committee Substitute 1 before asking for a concurrence?
Yes, ma'am. You may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So Senate Committee Substitute 1, as has been noted on several occasions, this body has been receptive to changes to House Bill 3 in order to address concerns that are not in conflict with the spirit of the bill, and most especially when adopting language that has been upheld by the Supreme Court of the United States. In Section 5 through 20 that are in regards to the abortion-inducing drugs, the language that was previously in House Bill 3 was model language created working with Susan B. Anthony list and the Americans United for Life. Portions of this language have been modified in order to better fit into current Commonwealth of Kentucky statute. For example, the previous language had the body developing and maintaining the Kentucky Abortion-Inducing Drug Certification Program and overseeing the complaint portal as the Kentucky Board of Pharmacy. Working with the Kentucky Board of Pharmacy, the governing body was changed to the Cabinet of Health and Family Services. The cabinet will communicate violations and complaints to the Kentucky Board of Medical Licensure and the Kentucky Board of Pharmacy for review and appropriate sanctions. In Section 21 through 23, that are in regards to the dignified disposal of fetal remains, the language is modified to further differentiate between the remains of humans surgically or chemically aborted versus those as the result of spontaneous abortion. Additional language has been added for fetal remains to be delivered to the health care facility or abortion clinic for final disposal. Mr. Speaker, if there are no questions, I move for concurrence with the changes to Senate Committee Substitute 1.
Motion made that the House does concur with Senate Committee Substitute 1. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. No. Motion carries. The House does concur with Senate Committee Substitute 1. Lady from Meade.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would you please ask the clerk to report Senate Floor Amendment 2?
Mr. Clerk, please report.
Senate Floor Amendment 2 to House Bill 3.
Lady from Meade.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. If I may address the body to communicate the changes to the Senate Floor Amendment 2 before asking for adoption.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The bulk of the changes in House Bill 3 and Senate Floor Amendment 2 are in sections 21 through 23 that are in regards to the dignified disposal of fetal remains. The changes were primarily to the birth-death certificate and inserting the statute of fetal remains resulting from an abortion for the purpose of cremation that shall meet all requirements of a death, birth death, provisional death, or death certificate for transportation or cremation. In other words, the language permitting funeral home directors to transport these remains. Additional language is added for the fetal remains to be handed over to law enforcement in the context of a criminal investigation with the consent of the parent or to a pathological laboratory for examination of the fetal remains, also with the consent of the parent. The remaining changes were replacing chemical with medical or medication for further clarification. Mr. Speaker, if there are no questions, I move for the concurrence of the changes to Senate Floor Amendment 2.
Motion made that the House does concur with Senate Floor Amendment 2. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. No. Motion carries. The House does concur with Senate Floor Amendment 2. Lady from Meade.
Mr. Speaker, would you please ask the clerk to report Senate Floor Amendment 3?
Mr. Clerk, please report.
Senate Floor Amendment 3 to House Bill 3.
Lady from Meade.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. If I may address the body to communicate the changes to the Senate Floor Amendment 3 before asking for concurrence.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Senate Floor Amendment 3 adds the language to replace the existing 2-week statutory ban to replace it with a 15-week ban. In May of 2021, the U.S. Supreme Court announced that it would hear an appeal by the state of Mississippi of a federal circuit court decision that ruled a law banning abortion after 15 weeks of pregnancy to be unconstitutional. The court's acceptance of this case was interpreted to be a willingness to revisit the principles of the 1973 Roe v. Wade decision, in part because Roe was based upon what is now outdated and erroneous understanding of the viability of an unborn child. The case was argued on December 1st of 2021, and the oral argument further confirmed the belief of legal observers that the court was willing to either overthrow Roe v. Wade or significantly revise it. A written decision is expected in late June or early July. The language in Senate Floor Amendment 3, Mr. Speaker, is closely modeled after the Mississippi legislation that is also before the Supreme Court. I'm bringing this bill to you so that in the event the Supreme Court upholds the Mississippi legislation as constitutional, we will have a pro-life law in place that would not be subject to a good faith legal challenge. Mr. Speaker, Senate Floor Amendment 3 also changes the reference point for determining the age of an unborn child from post-fertilization age to gestational age. Gestational age is defined as the age of an unborn human individual as calculated from the first day of the last menstrual period of a pregnant woman. Mr. Speaker, if there are no questions, I move for the concurrence of the changes for Senate Floor Amendment 3.